My name is Peter Sorellis. I'm a videographer and editor from Toronto, Canada. I specialize in sports videography, and today I'm going to show you how to create this super cool masking clone effect in Adobe Premiere Pro.
Every time the ball is in the air, it's mine. There's no such thing as a 50-50 ball for me. It's 92.
Deep ball ran away for Lewis, who has it, and is still in his feet, looking into the end zone.
So normally an effect like this needs After Effects to really be completed successfully, or at least it's easier to complete it in After Effects, but I understand that using After Effects is really intimidating a lot of the time and not necessarily something that you always want to do. So today I'm going to show you how to make the effect that you just watched solely in Adobe Premiere Pro without any other applications, using just the tools involved there. And I actually already completed this edit for the Canadian Football League, who I work for on a full-time basis. So I'm going to actually bring you into the edit that we did, and we're going to go step by step through and see how everything is done so that you can put this together yourself. So the point of this edit was to establish this player, this receiver, as an all-star within the league. And I wanted to do this in a few different ways. So I found a quote from him first, from him on a podcast, talking about how when a ball's in the air, it's his, and there's no 50-50 balls. With him, it's a 90-10. So then I actually took that text and I wrote, frame by frame, as we go through the video, every time the ball is in the air, it's mine. There's no such thing as a 50 ball for me, it's 90-10, as you can see on the screen. And then I actually put that word by word popping onto the screen to really emphasize it, so it's the first thing that hits you in the face. And it's like a really impactful quote, in my opinion, for a receiver to say. It's a really confident thing to come out and proclaim. So I wanted to make sure that hit you in the face right at the start. And then I kind of animated that off at the end, kind of in line with the mask here, fairly roughly, so that the text disappeared in a more gradual way rather than being really harsh. Now on to the actual creation of the visual animation itself, like outside of the text. The first thing you have to do is source your images. So you're going to be using a lot of still imagery for this. You can either take still images from videos, or you can take still images that are actually shot as photographs. And I did a combination of both here. There were some that were already provided to me and some that I took from still images of videos that I filmed. So you can see here, for example, let's get rid of this texture for a moment. We will talk about textures later. This is just a still image. We'll get rid of this. But like this right here, this is just an image. There's nothing else to it. And then this is a cutout of the player within that image. You can do these cutouts in Premiere Pro if you'd like, or you can do them in Photoshop. I'll show you how to do them in this video in Premiere, but the process for doing them in Photoshop is nearly identical if you prefer to use that application. So we have this image here in Adobe Premiere Pro. If you come to the opacity tab here, you can click on the pen tool, or free draw Bezier tool, I guess, as they call it. And that'll give you the option to start creating a mask around a certain object. So we can just start creating points around this player. If you click and pull, it'll create a curved point, and if you just press, it won't be curved. But you just want to take the pen tool and come all the way around the player like this and create a mask around him. You can see you also can't click too close from one point to the other, because it'll cause a rotation. So if you do that, just click Command Z to undo. And for this type of thing, it's usually best that you zoom in. So if you come down here, you can actually, in the program monitor, choose what percentage you want to zoom into. So I'll zoom into 200% here, and then drag this around so that we can get a little bit closer in and make a more precise mask. Make some adjustments. And I'm not going to go through the full process of masking this here, but you can see what I'm doing from this process of just moving points around and getting them in position. Again, this is something that you can do in Photoshop, and the process of masking this way in Premiere isn't necessarily as intuitive as in Photoshop, and it's certainly not as intuitive as in After Effects, where you can choose to use a roto brush for this type of thing. But we're trying to keep this all in Premiere. So if you're going to do it in Premiere, this is the best way to do it. Though, if you're willing to go into Photoshop or After Effects and either use the pen tool or the roto brush tool respectively, I would recommend doing that as well. So you basically complete this mask all the way around the player, and then it will give you something that looks a lot like this. Once you have this cutout, then you can start to actually animate. And there's two different ways that I animated in this video with regards to still imagery. So there's one is to have a single image move in a stop motion format over time, and the second way is to create a clone trail with the same image repeating itself. So the first one looks like this, where you have one image and then it progresses a few frames and then jumps to the next position, and you progress a few more frames and it jumps to the next position. And the second one looks like this, where you have this single image and a duplicate of that image appears in a different location, and then a few frames later another duplicate appears, and then another duplicate appears. And then later on, those duplicates disappear in reverse order that they appeared. So let's talk about first how to create the easier of the two, which is one image moving. And I'm gonna disable the background layers for this just so that it's easier to focus on what we're doing here. You can see I have these textures laid in between the images as well to create some separation from the cutout images and the background. So for example, I have this background here, but then I place this color grade and this hard burn layer under the cutout image so that it stands out from the background. I also have these paper layers from my Ultimate Paper texture pack on my website there as well. So let's look at the effects control tab here. You can see that I've animated the position. So we have our first position right here, and then I've gone forward 1, 2, 3, 4 frames, and then moved the player over to the next position. Then I've gone forward another 1, 2, 3, 4 frames and adjusted the position once again. So you can see here that we've gone up and right every single keyframe. And then I finally went to here. If we turn this off, you can see this image move from where it was slightly to the right. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But for this first animation, once you have the 3 keyframes for the positions where you want your still image to be moving across your frame, or you can do more than 3 keyframes. I just chose to do 1, 2, 3 keyframes moving this image across the frame. If you select them all, right click, temporal interpolation, hold. This tells Premiere Pro that rather than have this image slowly move from one position to another position over the duration of the 2 keyframes, you want that image to stay in one place for the entire time after it hits a keyframe until it hits the next one. This image will now stay in this position, 486.4 and 912.3, until it hits the next keyframe, at which point it moves directly there. Whereas if I were to highlight these two and change it to linear, which is how it starts, then the image will slowly move from one position to the next. And that's not what we want for this. We want it to be more of a stop motion effect, so using that hold is really important. Now coming over to the more complicated effect, you can see that I've laid the actual image out on the very bottom layer. Then I put paper textures over top of that image. And then I put the cutout of this player over top so that it's aligned with where the full image is on the bottom. So now I have this texture in the background covering everything except for the player, and then I have the player itself over top. And then to create the actual clone trail effect, I've basically held Option and dragged to create another copy, just like that. And then I've added a second copy of the image, which is right up here, basically by going like this, just to the left of the original image on the bottom, which you can see right here. So we have our first image, which is just separating the player from the background and from the rest of the image. We have our first copy, which instead of being at 706 is at 606, slightly to the left. Then we go forward 1, 2, 3 frames, and we have another image right here at 506, just to the left of the next one. Then we go 1, 2, 3 frames, and let's actually show you how I would have done this. You hold Option, drag, place the image there, and then put it at 406, and there's the next one. And then as you want to animate them off, you can just cut the layer when you want it to go away. So here you can see that let's say all the layers look like this. I would just place a cut and then delete this, and then you would have one go, cut, the next one's gone, there's a cut, this one's gone, and then the last one's cut away. And that's how you create that clone trail effect. You can get creative with the ways that you animate stuff on or off, but that's essentially the only 2 types of effects that I used on player cutouts in this animation. And you basically just repeat that principle with a whole bunch of different images in different creative ways. You can have your images move up and down, side to side, left to right, diagonally, whatever you want using those 2 different styles of animation. Doing it fast enough will give you something like what you've seen here, and that's really all I've done. So it's not difficult or complicated, it's just fast and requires a lot of work, but it looks a lot more difficult than it actually is. The last principle that I kind of used here was on animating the background, and I'm going to show you that using this animated texture 5 here that I used as a background. So here you can see we have the same clone trail effect, and I just animated it off by grouping all of these together by highlighting them, right clicking and selecting nest, and then creating a mask that goes over these images and slowly takes them off the screen. And we do the same thing actually to animate the background here. So you can look at this white background texture that we have. So we can look at this white background texture that I have right here, and I've actually drawn a mask that slowly brings that background texture off and reveals this image right here that I have beneath it. So I'll zoom out here so you can see the mask a little bit better. Let's click on our mask right here. And here you can see at this frame, the mask is fully showing the image. We'll go forward one more frame and the mask has slightly cut. So if I were to do that again, I would basically move over, grab these points, and drag them down. You want to make sure that when you first start drawing your mask, you also hit this stopwatch icon right here. Once you touch the stopwatch icon after drawing a mask, it tells Premiere Pro that you want that mask to animate over time. If you don't hit that, it will just change the position of the mask for the entire video and it won't actually animate. It'll forget what you previously did. So you want to make sure you hit that first before you start animating. But after that, we go one frame to the right and you can see that we're in the same position that we were. So all I did to get from here to there is copy the keyframe over. So let me delete that and show you how to copy these keyframes. So you draw a mask, you go Command C, you make sure that you're clicked on the mask path right here. You can't be clicked on the mask, you can't be clicked on opacity, you have to select the mask path. And then you go right one frame and hit Command V and it pastes that same keyframe. If you're doing this in After Effects, you can actually do that same toggle hold keyframe that I showed you on the position earlier to the mask, and that'll save you from having to copy these keyframes. Unfortunately, if you highlight these and right click, there's no option to change it to hold. It doesn't let you do it, it's grayed out. So in order to get that hold, you have to copy these keyframes to make sure that the mask doesn't move from one position to another between frames when you want it to stay still. Then we go to the next keyframe from here, and you can see that I've had it animate off a little bit more. And again, I've copied that keyframe. I've had it animate off a little bit more, and I've copied that keyframe. It animates more. And then once again, I selected this keyframe, click Command C, selected mask path, went one to the right, and clicked Command V, and that copied it again. And then we did that one more time, and then the next frame, the mask disappears. And what that looks like is this, where you get the mask slowly coming on and off. And again, I've combined that with other effects where I have images animating on and off in the same way in different directions at the same time. And it makes it look really intricate. And when your brain watches it, it doesn't come off as just a whole bunch of masks slowly going on and off. It looks like something much more difficult than that. All right, that's gonna be it for this video. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to the channel because I post videography and video editing tips and tutorial videos similar to this one on a regular basis. And I'd love to have you around for that. If you have any questions or concerns about anything we talked about today, go drop them in the comment section. I would love to help you out down there. If you want to see a little bit more insight into this specific video, I did actually make a timeline post showing the full timeline and talking about it in detail on my Instagram @psurrealist. So you can go check that out if you'd like. And if you liked some of the overlays in this video, I do have them for sale along with some of my LUTs and some other freebies that you can pick up on my website, www.petersurrealist.com. Everything will be linked in the description. I appreciate you checking out the video. Thank you so much and have a great day. Peace.